Tiara fits.
So what do you buy? Oh, really?
Richard, do you want me to fix your plate?
Everything.
I don't.
It's necessary to go.
Hey, Edith.
We have there also some more Costco because they don't label the aisles.
There you go.
Steve's got it figured out.
They move them. They move them. That's like when they take that.
All right.
No,
Like a happy birthday to me.
Let's move this stuff around before the coincidences get here. We find them.
I need Richard.
Karen was, but she's standing for a moment.
They're not easy to
There you go, Jess.
What are you doing? Hello?
100.
Oh, she's not taking powder.
Something looks she did when I gave you her chair.
There we go. Oh, they're lighting it. Okay. Oh, I'm gonna get. Let's take a picture of you and Richard. Turn off the light.
Happy birthday
to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Edith. Happy birthday to you and many more.
Who's gonna help us close it out? Wait.
Uh-oh. Low amount, babe.
Hey, Parker.
I'm gonna help you.
Risking a third-degree burn.
Yeah.
Let's
Parker,
have her
you
stand
help.
up.
Her legs, her legs are not in spot with these. Hang on 1 second. Let me just.
I forgot to get this picture of your son to put in the book. He filled out a book.
Are you ready?
All right. Up and at 'em, babe.
We have this.
Let's go dancing while we're up.
You focus on the cake.
Hold on to the table.
Don't ask me.
You all right? You don't have to do this, you know.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Make a wish, Grandma. Parker and I are gonna help you. You work on those.
Wish for the next 200.
Oh, wow, look at that.
Yay! Lights.
Lights, yes, lights.
Before I start, I'd like to make a couple of thank you.
Yeah, we can't hear you. We'll have to hear everybody quieter. Okay, everybody's gonna have to be quiet.
I'd like to thank my daughter Lori,
Yes.
who had the great good sense to realize that her father and her uncles were just too disconnected to get all of this together. She's done a great job. I'd also like to thank Jennifer and Tino for hosting us at their house last night for the close family, where we
Very nice.
where we recharged our barbecue deficit. Hard up in Washington. So anyway, you chime in when I get it wrong, and Jerry, you should come up here too. We should do this together. And let me explain. We do this mainly for the crowd over here. You guys don't know this story, and you should know, because this is your heritage. Most of the people in this room probably do know it. Maybe they don't know it all. I certainly know that I don't know it all. But this is an American story, and it starts before the turn of the 20th century. Grandma Becky was from Poland. Actually, Grandma Becky had to leave Poland in a hurry because she was a smuggler. Grandma was smuggling clothing from Germany into Poland under her dress across the border. Times were hard in Poland. She got word that the authorities were on to her, and therefore she took a powder. Where? She made her way to England. And And what did she do in England? She ran into Sam. Grandpa Sam Lasky, the patriarch, at least in this country. Sam, I don't know exactly why Sam left Russia. He was trained or going to be a rabbi. His father was in the Russian army. Yes.
Was he Lasky or Lesky?
He was Stephanos Lasky.
I thought it was Israel.
Israelevsky. You're right, Israelevsky. It became Lesky at Ellis Island.
And by the way, if you want to, you can go on the net and you can actually see the bill of lading on the ship and his registration of the date that they landed on Ellis Island.
It shows that Sam, Becky, and Bertha
Right.
listed as
That's right.
passengers.
That's right. Well, from Sam and Becky, they had 9 children. But I get ahead of the story. Sam makes his way to England, and there he met Becky. And
He left Russia because he was going to be interned into the army, which he did not want to do.
right. He was going to be impressed into the Russian army. His father was in the army, an officer, which was highly unusual for Jews to be a captain in the Cossacks.
But didn't he also save the Tsar's life? That's the story.
Not the Tsar's life, but he was cited for bravery, and because of that became an officer in the Russian army. But his father died, and he was left without resources. So he could not go to rabbinical school, and left Russia, got to England where he met Becky. Now, Pearl Bailey's autobiography says that her parents met, fell in love, got married, and had me, but not in that order. That actually is the case with Sam and Becky, because Bertha was born before they were married.
I didn't know that.
You know, I saw something about that.
Yeah,
There's something
that's
about
right.
dates that didn't make sense to me.
So Aunt Bertha...
Oh, I know. One of those pictures has their 46th anniversary, but it was in the 49. Yeah, there's
Right.
something that didn't add up, and I was too busy with the party to question it.
So they came to the United States. Jerry, I don't know the year, do you?
1908, I think.
No,
Bertha was 2 years old.
Before that, because Mom was born in 1909 in Philadelphia. They came
Grandpa was
first.
1905.
What?
Henry was 1905.
Right.
When was
okay.
Bertha
So
born?
they had to be here before that.
So they had to be
1902
here
or 3 then?
before 1905. I think it was just before the turn of the century, but I've
No,
never,
it was
I've
after.
never seen that. But
I saw it on
anyway,
the ship I got.
they
It's
came first to
1902.
New York. They, I think, Grandma had relatives in New York, right, Mom?
Yeah.
Didn't Grandma have some relatives in New York?
I really don't know.
Sigerman's?
This Sigerman's was Bertha's side of the family when she married the Vice.
Rose, do you know? Did your mama have friends in New York?
Family.
Family in New York?
Okay. Anyway, so they came to New York. Grandpa's skill was tailoring, and he was a tailor all of his life, all of his adult life. As a matter of fact, in some of the pictures up there, you'll see Uncle Harold at age 3 in a double-breasted suit. His father made it. Jerry told me tonight that Grandpa made his clothes till he was 7 years old.
Yeah. You're still wearing it.
Yeah. They first came to New York. From New York, they moved to Philadelphia, where Mom was born, May 5, 1909. Before TV, before anything is incredible to name it. Yeah. They moved to
Wait, and Henry.
And Seal,
And
and
Maury.
Born,
Maury and Edith, yeah. They were all born in Philadelphia.
Oh, okay. So they stayed in Philadelphia quite a while. And then they went to Columbia, South Carolina, Mom?
Columbus, Georgia,
Columbus, Georgia?
where mother was born.
Yeah.
Okay, Columbus, Georgia. And then they moved from there to Houston. It must have been 1916 or 17. Is that right, Mom?
I think they moved to Galveston first, then Houston.
Galveston. Yeah,
They actually lived in
Yes.
Galveston? See, I don't know the whole story, and this is very bad. Are you guys taking notes, because it's going to be on the test?
Yes, we are.
Okay,
She must have been Philadelphia.
yeah. So, Houston was nothing when they moved here. I mean, there had been a concentration of military posts here, I think, but Houston was basically the end of the earth.
Your mother described this earlier today as prairie.
Right. All the Galveston, Texas, was really the commercial center of Texas until the hurricane of 1900.
1900.
Yeah.
September 9th.
And that devastated Galveston, and then the financial center shifted to Houston, and so they came
Because
here
of oil, mainly.
1917, and then a few years later, in the 30s, Iron picture in 1935. And the rest is history, I guess. I was born right here in Houston, in Herman Hospital. Jerry was born in Bryan, right?
Bryan, Texas.
A couple of years later. And then of course, we moved back to Houston. Now, I lived, we all lived with Grandma and Grandpa for a while at the beginning of World War II, because all the guys were off. I know Mom got remarried in 1943, I guess, with Joe. We all lived on Southmore. I remember Sarah Lee living with us, and Bertha was living with us, and Seal was living with us, and Bernard was living with us, and Marion, Grandma, Grandpa. A small house, and it was chock full. And it was a delightful time, really. I remember it deeply. I remember being so impressed by Bernard, who would sit down at the table in the kitchen and do algebra. I just thought that was the greatest thing in the world. I remember Sarah Lee taking good care of me. When I pitched a tent out in the back and slept out one night. That was a
Probably because somebody was sleeping in your bed.
Right, probably. But anyway, let me turn this back to Mom, because
Let me interject something here. During that period, when the war started, Harold, they were in Houston, and Harold was going to go to medical school in Galveston. And Grandma and Grandpa moved back to Galveston so that Harold would have a place to live while he went to medical school. And Grandpa opened a tailor shop in Galveston, and I can remember Grandma packing his lunch every day, giving it to me, and I was about, well, let's see, this is 42, so I couldn't have been, I was born in 38, so I was 6 or 7 years old. I would take this, get on the streetcar, pulled by horses, go downtown and give Grandpa his lunch, and then go back home. And then after Harold finished medical school, then they moved back to Houston again. But they were there during the entire time. Now Harold went to medical school during the war, so he went straight through medical school. Took him, it was straight 3 years, he went straight through. There was no summer vacations, nothing. He went, started, and was gone in 3 years, and that's when they moved back to Houston. So we'll go from there.
Harold sent a story that I was not able to print up, but it's for Grandma's book, where he said, right before went to start medical school. He realized he was short because he didn't have the application fee of $25, and he went to everybody in the family. It was the Depression, nobody had any money. Grandma Edith came up with the $25 and handed it to him, so he credited her with his going to medical school. He ended the email by saying he doesn't think he ever paid her money back.
And I remember that not only was it a tailor shop, it was also a used clothing shop, and referred to as the Schmatte shop. I suppose there are some in this room who remember that, right, Aunt Rose? The Schmatte shop in Galveston? But who can remember stories about Mom? The one that I remember most is kind of embarrassing because during the war, well, I guess just shortly before the war, Mom was a widow. Jerry and my father, Jerry and my father, was killed in an automobile accident when I was 2 years and 9 months old, and Jerry was 3 weeks old. Is that what we figured, Laura?
Mm-hmm.
So Mom took a job, and she was working for some cosmetic company, and had to go away. To me, I was 3 years and 4 years old at the time, and of course we were living with Grandma and Grandpa over on Calumet. And Grandpa was out in the garage tramping on grapes. He made wine, and all of a sudden he looked at me and he smiled and he said, "Look," and he points. He was pointing to Mom. She'd come back from this trip, and I looked. I didn't recognize her. I didn't know who it was. I was a little kid, and it took me a while, and then it came to me. So I ran to her, and she held her arms out. I'll remember that to the day I die.
It was at this time that your sister Judy died. And
What year?
I think it was 42, 43. somewhere.
No, it wasn't 42.
Oh, no, I'm
it
sorry.
was before that.
This was in 38 or 39. It was right after I was born. And
So you don't remember.
when Mom came back to Houston, your dad wanted to adopt me. Because I was only 2 or 3 weeks old. Mom was a widow, etc.
Been okay with me.
It would have been okay with me too. So there are so many intertwining things in this family that most people don't know about, but that have occurred over the years. My first memory as a child, my very first memory, when I was 3 years old, was Roosevelt's speech saying, "Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a day which will live in infamy." I remember that speech, and the reason I remember it is because all the sisters were gathered around the radio listening to this and started crying. And I couldn't figure out, why was everybody crying? Why was everybody so upset? And that's my very first memory in my lifetime, was Roosevelt's speech on the Second World War, when he declared war on Japan.
When we were living on South, I remember that day too. I had a broken leg in school and was laid up, and then the program was interrupted by an announcement of the attack on Pearl Harbor, and I hobbled up from the couch to go tell everybody, but they already knew. They'd heard it on another radio. We were very lucky family, I guess. We had more than one radio.
Never heard
But
of
who can tell stories of
We paused it for a
Andy?
moment because we have to actually head out.
I want to thank you two guys for coming too. These are my stepkids.
Wonderful to come.
Becky, will you take
So good
pictures?
to see you
We
as
can have
well.
pictures with them here. You need just a couple pictures before they get out of here.
1, 3.
I'm like jumping
I'll just
down.
be down here with the grandma.
1, 3. 3. No, look, hey Edith, look over here, babe. Edith, there you go.
Harris,
Wait a
Herman.
minute, they got 2 more.
Come on, y'all.
Okay, Lois is coming in. Everybody's coming in. Hold on.
Herman.
Let me get this one.
Have you here?
Herman. Mirror in front of it. I had that at home. I would have brought the mirror.
Okay, wait a minute, because this is somebody else's.
That's mine, yeah, don't worry about
Get
it.
in the picture.
Yeah, because I don't think
Get on the
that
other
one.
side
I
of
don't think that
Andy.
one will get it.
That's
Don't
all
worry
right.
about it.
My sister will
Other
send
side
it
of
to
Andy.
her.
There you go. Ah, yes. Ah, yes. It's gonna be great.
We got one more.
Come on, Richard. Richard, come on right here.
Richard, you want to stand on a chair so you're the tallest
Somebody's
guy
got to
in the
kneel
room?
down with the
I think,
napkin.
I think the fact that I'm in the picture at all.
No,
is-
Richard, why don't you come to the front?
Yeah.
All
All right.
right. I can at least sort of. Yeah. touch it.
1, 2, 3.
Take a
Wait,
couple
wait,
now.
wait,
Take a
wait,
couple.
wait,
Take a couple.
Do it again. Now y'all smile and then greet. 1, 2, 3.
You're right.
We have another party to go to. Did you do your pages? Yes. You did your page.
Story sort of swings down to Danville, Illinois. And Dad transferred to the VA hospital, to the VA in Danville. And Mom, oh, I came in the picture. Yeah, right. 1946 in August in Chicago, and I don't remember when Mom and Dad went to Danville. Danville was very small, and Mom, as Marilyn reminded me, was always a good salesperson. So she went into this shoe store one day to buy shoes, and I don't know how long it took, but before long, first she was the top salesperson. And it wasn't long after that she was managing the school. And they really, when it was time for her to leave, they really didn't want her to come. She had one customer that she would come in, and he would always walk out with 2 pairs of alligator shoes. Every time, yeah. The funny story is that Mary and I drove through Danville 2 years ago. The house we lived in Danville is still there. And the quarter-acre of land where we used to grow food back there, and it's still there. And I remember Mom, down the basement, Mom would can the big pots of vegetables and stuff, go in the jars, the mason jar. We'd have this big wall. What grocery store? That was our grocery store. Really, it was just.
Well, I see Rose is here, and it reminds me of a story of Rose, which I will tell. I was not the easiest kid to handle, and I remember once I swiped a pair of hinges. I decided that I would go to the hardware store and sell them. To my chagrin, there were 2 policemen outside, and the store owner, seeing this 6-year-old kid presenting a pair of 4-inch hinges to sell, turning over to the cop. I was petrified, and I came home, and I got disciplined. But the discipline that Aunt Rose meted out was the most terrifying thing I've ever encountered in my life. She came to my room that evening, and she said, "You are really a trouble kid. You know, when you're arrested like that, they put your name on a piece of paper, and they put it in a jar. It's at the courthouse, and it will stay there forever." The quantum of my honesty rose after that, from that warning. Remember that, Rose? Probably not, but I do. Mom's job. Mom was worked at the courthouse in Houston as well. I don't know the other jobs actually. When Joe came along, I don't think Mom really worked after that, unless you count raising us.
And Joe.
And being married to
And
Joe.
Joe. Who else? Does anyone else have any
Yeah.
any remembrances of Mom? Yeah.
I remember Edith when she was working at that shoe store in Danville. I went to visit one time, and I went to the shoe store to meet her when I first got into town. And she said, well, just go to a movie and come back, and I'll take you home with me. So I went to a double feature, came back. No, go to another movie. So I did. Came back. She said, well, I'm still working. Take a cab to the house. And I took a cab, and Joe meets me out front and says, I don't want you here. You're not welcome. If I had my way, you wouldn't be here. But don't tell Edith, she'll kill me. And what's really funny is Marty was already staying there.
That's why I didn't want you.
Want you.
That was my dear Joe.
Right. Well, you must have some stories, Jennifer. Yeah.
Every time I showed up, Joe asked me why the hell I was there. I had to sneak in the back door. So my earliest memory of whenever I would go all the time to Grandma's, Grandma would watch me all day long. We would watch Remember the Price is Right, and half the time I would remove things from my bag my mom would pack for me. So I'd take out my shoes or I'd take out whatever it was because I knew once I got to Grandma's, if I had no shoes or if I had ugly shoes, then we would go shopping. And do you remember how many times you would sneak bags of clothes into the house and Grandpa would ask you, since when you were shopping in the juniors department, you told him that you always wore clothes from the juniors department?
Or coming to Washington, Mom would visit while our Shelby was growing up. Shelby is a little neighborhood kid who has the position of being an honorary grandchild. And Mom would play poker with her all day.
Oh, I'll tell that story.
Cindy was talking about it. I just heard that story.
Shelby would love to ask Charles to tell her stories about when he was bad, when he was a child. And he told her about the time Jerry and Charles were playing Fireman, and they put bottles of water in a wagon. They started a fire. It got out of control. The fire department came. Jerry got blamed, as usual. There were several of them. There was a time he chopped down the neighbor's
On that fire, by the
tree.
way, Charles says to me, run, go hide under the porch. And the fireman came and said, who did this? He's under the porch.
Well, anyway, Edith was in town, and Shelby's daddy had to go to work, and there was no school that day. So I said, well, we have to go to work too, but Edith is here. She can come and spend the day with Edith. And one of the things that Edith would always do when she came is she would cook. And we'd have these wonderful meals, but the kids just couldn't wait to finish the meal because they knew afterwards she would play poker with them for real money. And she would lose to them. So I come in the door after being at work all day, and there are Shelby and Edith at the table playing poker. And Edith turns to me and she says, it's the cutest thing. She's been telling me all these stories about Charles when he was bad. And so Edith said, I don't even remember. I don't even know if I knew these stories. So anyway, that is a story from Edith. And I just wanted to say that I feel blessed and so lucky to have Edith in my life. She was so sweet to my children. You see that they wouldn't miss this for anything, to come and wish her well on her 100th. And she would spend a fair amount of time in Washington when Janet had her awful accident, and she took care of the kids. So
Yeah,
we
I
got
want to talk about that.
We got to have a fair amount of time with her, and she was just so kind and generous over time. And she really pitched in and helped us at a terrible time. So I love you, Edith, and I hope you'll have many more happy birthdays.
What are we going to do next year? I'll be right back
I'll
here.
let you plan it.
Could be a Dalmatian.
We're going to Vegas.
Could be a Dalmatian theme.
Yeah.
I have one story.
Oh, good.
It's not about Aunt Edith, but it's
about you, and I think your children and the rest of your offspring will appreciate it. Charles, my cousin Charles lived with us on Parkwood while he was going to Rice University. And it was a great time. But way before that, when we lived on Blodgett, he stayed with us then too for a little while. And the only thing I can remember is that at bedtime, you remember, huh? In order to get me to go to sleep faster and well and have a good night's sleep and good dreams, he used to read me stories from Edgar Allan Poe. And for those of you, every night I was petrified. All the lights had to go on. And the next night he would come in and I could, to do it again, and I would listen again. Now that doesn't say very much for me. But for those of you who are too young to know who Edgar Allan Poe was, you take the scariest movie you've ever seen and multiply it about 10 times. And those were his stories, his bedtime stories.
Nevermore.
Okay, no grandchildren are allowed at your house at bedtime. You're not reading our kids.
Smart move.
Great grandkids. Stand up.
No, I forgot what I was going to say.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
That's what I did after you read the stories. Forgot.
No, I just want to say something. A couple things. I didn't plan anything. Grandma has always been extremely special to me. My earliest memory, Jerry, you talked about yours. My earliest memory is the weekend my sister was born. Yes, Becky. I just remember sitting outside and Grandma used to come. I just always had happy memories of her. She would always give me the biggest hugs and the biggest smiles. And this one day I was sitting there and I saw her come up, and she just breezed right by me. She didn't look at me, she barely acknowledged me, and I was crushed. I just didn't understand. It was only many years later that I put two and two together that, okay, she must have been called over to take care of us while my mother went into the hospital, but no, Grandma,
She forgives you now.
I do forgive you. But Grandma always used to come visit us when I was younger, and the first thing she'd do is take us to Lowen's Toy Store. $5 to spend. We could get anything we wanted for $5, and that was always a treat. But when my mom had her accident, Grandma gave up her life here, which is, sorry, Joe. So maybe it was a vacation for her. But she had to come deal with teenagers, and I had just got a driver's license, and 6 months Grandma stayed with us, and she took care of us. She took care of Mom when Mom came home from the hospital, and most of it went pretty smoothly. There was one day when I accidentally left the keys in the trunk when we were going shopping. After I told her, Grandma, just put the keys down there, and she wouldn't speak to me for a few days. We had to call someone to get the keys out of the trunk, but I'd ask for the car. She'd tell me no. 5 minutes later, I'd take the car. Here are the keys. Go. And she made the best, whatever she wanted to cook, whatever she cooked, it was the best. One of my most memorable meals is leftovers. She made a chicken pot pie with some leftovers. I was 16 years old. She put mashed potatoes on top, and I still remember it. And then she took me to New York, Janie, for my birthday that year.
That's your 16th birthday.
It was my 16th birthday. Grandma's always just...
Grandma.
Grandma's just Grandma. Yeah.
Well, I can tell the Cohens a story about Mom. After when Joyce and Stu got married, and Stu was finishing up his residency, Joyce was pregnant with Stephen, and they came down from Chicago to Danville to visit us for a weekend. And Joyce was upstairs in the bathroom taking a bath. We were all downstairs. And there was a big loud scream from upstairs. And Mom went shooting up the stairs to see what passed. She thought maybe Joyce had fallen down in the tub or something. And when she got up there to find out that this was the first time that Stephen had kicked Joyce. And she came back downstairs, and everybody was wondering what happened. And Mom said, "Oh, it's nothing. The baby just kicked her for the first time." So that was in Danville when, I don't know.
He's been kicking her ever since?
Yeah. These stories about Mom are heartwarming, but everybody should realize that they're not confined to mom. What we're describing here is a family. And each of those 9 siblings shared all of these traits. I have literally lived at the homes of my aunts and uncles. I heard Linda tell you about one. I stayed with others. I stayed with Annette and Herman many, many times. Not quite as many as my brother. He's a better moocher than me on that score. But I always knew that wherever there was an aunt or an uncle, whether it was Henry or Maury in Austin, where Jerry and I went to school at the University of Texas for a while, and always go over to the Maury's, be with them, get fed, get a couple bucks as well to help us out. Everybody. I can't think of anywhere that never happened. We spent summers with...
Wait a moment. When Lori started telling the story, I still remember when you came back from studying in France and you got married and you moved to San Francisco. I finally had my own room. Marty had his own room. Next thing I know, my mother said she's going to have to sleep on the sofa. I said, why? She says, Charles is coming back with his wife and kids. And y'all had the main room and you got an apartment on Stone Lake. I remember. You know, I said, don't forget them. And when Seal died, Charles wrote a note, and I always remember the line. He said, what can I say about my Aunt Seal? She was a cross between Dr. Albert Schweitzer and Annie Money.
That's true. That's true. Hey, I never knew when I had a bed when I lived with you guys, because Aunt Seal would come home with some waif involved in a divorce action, where she would not permit the child to be sent back to either parent. So she would bring in, and of course there weren't all that many beds, so I spent a lot of nights sleeping on couches.
Well,
but that's
it
the
don't
last
make you
you
feel
can
any
do.
better after all those years at Black Iron Set that was my dad's and his brother's saw. Pearline wound up with one and Grace had the other. We go visit. There were the two beds.
Well,
I remember she's a great seamstress, great knitter, great crocheter. She always made things for everybody. And one time I came home and she had made a costume for Jennifer for, what was it, Purim or for school play or something. And I said, why did you do that? And she said, well, Jennifer told me that you wanted me to make it for you. And I said, what? She went out and bought all the material and made it for her.
What we're missing in all of this are the blank years, the stories that we never got told by Henry and Maury and Seal and Grandma and Grandpa, Annette, Rose,
By the way,
Harold.
I think you should call Harold right now from the party.
Oh, okay. I don't have his phone number.
I do. It's in my phone.
You know what, though,
I
I
told him
have a story that needs to be told, because I just found out this a couple of years ago. I asked Rose why Grandpa was a Lesky and everybody else was a Lasky, and what happened, and she said Bertha didn't like the name Lesky. So on the report cards, she signed the report cards and she signed everybody's Lasky, but Grandpa had already dropped out of school. So that's the reason he was a Lesky and everybody else was a Lasky. That's how legal it was. All she had to do was sign the report card.
Well, my memories of Grandma were because my sister and I would always be sent to Texas by our parents for, I don't know, what was it, 2 weeks?
A month.
Summer? A month. In the summers.
It was fun.
And to have fun with grandmas. Of course it was fun. Because when you go to grandma's, you got to go, she would take me to yard sales. I get to buy model horses from the yard sales. But my earliest memories, I don't know what house it is, but there was a little kid's house
Waco.
in the yard.
70.
Okay, so,
That was when Mom went to Austria, in 1970.
Mm. 1970. 1970. 1970. 1970. 1970. 1970. 1970. 1970. 1970. 1970. 1970. 1970. 1970. 1970. 1970. 1970. 1970. 1970. 1970. 1970. 1970. 1970. 1970. 1970. 1970. 1970. 1970. 1970. 1970. 1970. 1970. 1970. 1970. 1970. 1970. 1970. 1970. 1970. 1970. 1970. 1970. 1970. 1970. 1970. 1970. 1970. 1970. 1970. 1970. 1970. 1970. 1970. 1970. 1970. 1970. 1970. 1970. 1970. 1970. 1970. 1970. 1970. 1970. 1970. 1970. 1970. 1970. 1970. 1970. 1970. 1970. 1970. 1970. 1970. 1970. 1970. 1970. 1970. 1970. 1970. 1970. 1970. 1970. 19
I know what you're
And I just remember also being in that kitchen, and she taught me how to play gin rummy at whatever age that was. So what age was that?
You were
What year?
4, 5.
4 or 5. So she's the one who taught me how to play cards.
Non-stop. I remember it. They played and played and played all day long.
And I'd win sometimes. And it was very fun. And she also taught me how to crochet. Remember that at the Houston house?
Who was that?
Me? You taught me how to crochet. Yeah, you taught me how to crochet. We would crochet at that house. So, and then Grandma's been.
Things that you.
So Grandma's been wonderful and took us out shopping, and she's always just been a wonderful grandmother and person.
I love the kids.
I remember you took Jennifer and Heather they needed tennis shoes, so you took them to Sakowitz, I believe. And then you couldn't figure out why they were so expensive, these tennis shoes. Oh, you
Should have
took
gone
them
to
buy tennis
Ashton where
shoes.
Miller was.
Anyway, happy birthday, Grandma.
Didn't get through.
There.
Look, just sit back down. This is somebody else's one.
Anyone else? So,
Let's see. I'll
yeah.
call Harold
Are
and
you
see if Harold
saying
is
something,
going to
Jeff?
say anything.
I'll tell you about a favorite trip. Dorothy had a trip one time. I wound up, it was a cruise. And it was Dorothy rooming with my mother. My mother was such a slob, I wouldn't stay in the room with her. And I roomed with Annette. And who else was on? Dorothy had a friend. And there was nothing like going through the Greek Isles with 4 Jewish mothers. Bad enough to have one, but 4 of them, we had so much fun.
Here's a seal story. When Andy and Mitch got married, they didn't have a lot of money, and for their honeymoon, they went to Las Vegas.
I was there.
And Andy had a piece of cake, from a wedding cake, that they were supposed to eat at midnight or something like that, and we had to bar the door to keep Seal out of that room. She wanted that wedding cake.
Jackie, you remember Seal?
Yes, of course I remember.
That was one thing about this family. All of us cousins, and the aunts. Nobody was ever without a place to stay, without
That's
a
right.
tuition, there wasn't any kind of formal, meeting or understanding. It was just happened. Somebody needed something. One of the aunts or uncles, somebody stepped in from the Lasky family and made sure all of us were taken care of. We were a tremendously large and very close group of cousins.
It takes
Yeah.
a village, and you had one.
We had one. We had
Right.
one. Didn't matter where we were or what we
Right.
needed. Somebody was there.
But I can also never remember a time when everybody would speak to everybody else. 'Cause it was all mad at somebody. I can never remember a time when there wasn't a feud.
Jerry, not among the cousins.
No.
Not
among the
among us cousins.
Right.
But some of those feuds went out for 5, 10, 20 years.
Yeah.
Aunt Edith had some curtains she wanted hung at her house and asked me to come over and help her. And I came over and helped her, and we were sitting on the floor and putting the rods back in them and putting the little hooks on them. And it was time to get up and hang them, and we had been sitting Indian style on the floor. And she stood straight up with no hands or anything like that. I'm still amazed by that to this day. Yeah, 'cause she was in her 70s, and she just stood straight up. And I couldn't understand how she did it, because I can't do that.
Wow.
I can't do
That's
She
that.
got to Charleston when she was 98 with the Fireman.
Yeah.
I think she would have taken one home if they'd.
Yeah. That's one of
Okay,
my.
well, I guess this includes the.
I'm trying to get Harold on the phone.
Oh.
Hold on a second.
Put it on speaker.
What?
I'm aware of that.
Harold? Hi, it's Lori. We're at the party. It's going great. Grandma's sitting here, people have been talking a little bit, we thought we'd call you.
Speakerphone.
Would you, should I put you on speaker? Would you like to say happy birthday to Grandma? Or, okay, I'll put you on speaker, hold on. You there? Nope, hold on. Wait, hold on, Harold. Okay, now speaker's on. Here's Harold.
Is there?
Yeah.
Harold.
Okay, Harold, you're on speaker. Grandma's holding the phone.
Edith, happy birthday from Harold and Ruth.
Thank you, darling.
Your flowers are beautiful.
They're
Spectacular.
absolutely gorgeous. We miss you, we miss you.
It's your baby brother.
Mason, film of some of the things they talked about. And that'll delight you when you get things that none of us knew about, you know, the things. Everybody here knows the family very well. And you'll hear some stories I never heard him tell before. And I'm one of the older ones.
You're the oldest.
Yeah, one of the younger ones.
He sort of laughed.
You're one of the older ones. They laugh.
This has been delightful. I miss you very much. What?
Are you enjoying yourself?
Of course, it's marvelous. This is the best one we've ever had. Everybody can tell stories that we never heard before.
Thus they go.
I haven't either. Now, what are they going?
Are you gonna post this?
I have to find.
Well, we'll
Yes,
get,
it's digital.
it's on
It's
videotape.
digital.
We'll send you.
Yeah,
We'll
send
send
it
you a
digital.
tape of the whole thing.
Send me a CD of this and I'll
Leslie,
take a look at
Leslie
it
does
and show it to me.
took care of it.
Well, that's wonderful.
We'll figure out how to.
Okay,
Keep it on the
now,
website.
wait a minute.
Hold on, Harold.
Hold on there. Somebody else wants to say.
The problem, Leslie, I
Yes,
haven't done it
Charles,
for
and
any
I
other
just want to
videos.
say hello.
It's great quality video.
We have a bunch of people over here. We've been telling stories.
I get the software out.
Grandpa, and you, and all the
You want to tell us
brothers and
any stories,
sisters.
Grandma?
It's been a marvelous time. Here's Jerry. You want to say hello to us?
I'm missing you.
We're taping all of this.
Grandma, you want to tell us any stories?
Sit down, we'll go over the
You
whole
want to
party.
tell us any
You'll see
stories?
everything
You
that-
want
You'll
to
see
tell
everything
us
that
any
went on.
stories?
Okay, well, it was good.
Let's all say goodbye to Harold.
Hold on.
Goodbye, Harold.
Bye, Harold.
Yes, we miss you. Thank you
You
for the
heard your
flowers.
goodbye. So I'll speak to you later. Bye.
No, but do you have any that you want to? Yeah, Grandma, would you like to talk? Would you like to tell any stories about your family? You want to tell anybody? Your brothers and sisters? Going down the street when he was 2 years old, all by himself to go see his dad, and you didn't know where he was, and you called the police to look for him. Oh, well, you told me that one.
All I know is I was so busy all the time. I didn't have time to listen to stories. Sorry, I had lots to do.
Well, happy birthday, sweetie.
And many more.
I remember washing diapers when I was a little kid for them. Mostly, I worked hard. But I was a middleman. I was the only one that could do these things. And then, by the time I was about, when I could have been more than 8 or 9 or 10 or something like that. And there was a bunch of kids already in the family.
Well, tomorrow, then I'm
And
talking
I
to
was
you.
walking those
See you
streets.
guys tonight.
And I sometimes, if they didn't drive, I was
Jerry.
in the kitchen.
I still remember it's not, I still remember that when we were at Shoal for your wedding. You told me to wait for your bride.
But it was a lot of fun growing up with this family. I loved it. I loved all the kids. And I worked hard. And I was just a little tight. I was short, very short.
Thanks. You gave that to me. You gave me the shortness.
I beg your pardon.
You gave me the short jeans.
She got the short jeans, small, from you.
She doesn't understand.
Everybody else. But it's been a lot of fun.
Okay.
Too much fun.
There's a lot of love for this family.
Yes, there is.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Should everyone go home?
I'm tired.
You want to open your presents?
Oh yeah, you have to open your presents.
All right.
Do you want to leave? You want to leave the camera with?
With who? Lori?
Were you able to come get me?